fight ahead. But because whatever symbols I drew, the commercial designers drew it differently. And I tried to explain to them that my symbols are designed to fit the keys of a typewriter. Besides, there is philosophy in the symbols. You can do it differently, but not containing the philosophy. A philosophy which every child, every boy and girl of 5 can understand and can love. Now, look here. I want to show you something.
Behind the house, there's a storage shed. It's a library, really. Here, Bliss has assembled the work of 35 years.
Every success of an idea depends on 2% inspiration and 98% perspiration. You have to work hard. Edison himself wrote 30,000 pages. The difference between me and Edison is this. Edison got millions of dollars. He spent, for instance, $4 million in 1870 on the apparatus which could detect minerals and ores in the ground.
But what about you?
I could do only as much as I could. I did never get a penny. I never got a penny. I went down on my knees before Scientific Foundation and begged them just a little bit of money for a publication grant. No was the answer. No, no, no. So there you are. There you are here. There's all my money without any support. Whatever I've done here, I've done it myself. And I know one thing. My cinematography series is already now 453. Here you are. There's about 500 issues of my cinematography series already there. And I'm sure when I'm dead, people will marvel how one single man could accumulate all this. So I say I'm a genius too, but what? In what? In taking infinite pains and never give in. Never give in.
Dr. Douglas Everingham is the Australian Federal Minister for Health. More than 20 years ago, he abandoned his own efforts to develop an international symbol language when he discovered the work of Charles Bliss.
As far as being a fanatic, I suppose everybody who pioneers some radically new idea has to be thought of as a fanatic. But I think this is so far ahead of his time that I like to compare it to two other men whose initials start with B. One was Braille, who invented not only a writing for the blind, but a musical notation, and he was only recognised almost by luck in his late 70s, I believe, when one of his pupils became a brilliant pianist. And when she was getting a standing ovation in Paris, she said, "The man who should be applauding is down there in the audience." And Louis Braille became acclaimed by the public, and this offset years and years of frustration and condemnation. The next one was Baird, who invented television, and I understand he died pretty late in life too, and pretty poor in a garret somewhere in London, although by that time, in the 1930s, there was already some regular TV broadcasting going on in Britain. Now, Bliss is in much the same category. He was quite reconciled years ago to dying without any recognition, and now in his late 70s, when his wife has died with long years of helping him to try and get it across, when they've written to thousands of educators and universities, publishers and so on, now at last he gets recognition from an unexpected quarter, the use of his symbols for disabled children.
George Lyons of Montreal, Canada, has 2 sons. The older son, David, is 6 years old. He cannot talk.
Yeah. Well, over a period of time, up until David was about 4 or so, we communicated quite well. We still communicate quite well, I think, as you can see. But it's only a very direct and immediate type of communication. David? When it came to finding out what was on David's mind, I was really stumped. Well, my solution to that was to attempt to put down sentences that David might want to express some of his feelings in. You don't want to play with that card? Okay. We'll put these cards away, these ones away. Let's look at this one here. No, you don't. A few of them he recognized and said, yes, that's what I want to say. But this was inadequate, of course, because sentences are clumsy things, and cards, writing sentences on cards is not exactly the way that he can easily express himself, looking through a deck of cards to try to find out what he thought his mind. What is it? That's the light, David. We have to leave that light there. We'll take it down after. We'll take down the light after, okay? So, I knew a bit about this problem since I had studied linguistics or applied linguistics at one point, and knew the impasse I had reached. And it just seemed that almost at that same time, I came across this article in the paper about what was happening at the Ontario Center for Crippled Children, where they had developed the use of a pictographic language or a symbolic language that children were able to use to express what was on their minds.
At the school in the center, there's a staff of psychologists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. 3 years ago, one of the teachers found a copy of Bliss's book in a college library in Sudbury, a mining town in northern Ontario.
We need a symbol for worship, I suppose.
In 1971, October, I received a letter from the Ontario Crippled Children's Centre in Toronto. They told me that they had discovered my symbols in this book and tried it out with the cerebral palsy children. It was an instant success.
I don't know if you remember how you felt when you first saw the book. I felt, golly, maybe this is it, you know, and I was excited, but I still wanted to see the whole thing before I let myself really get too carried away with it. How did you feel?
Well, I felt really extremely excited because it's something I felt in these symbols was exactly what I had in mind.
I felt I had to go there and help them. And I mortgaged my house and flew over to Canada, right into the heart of these children. It was wonderful, wonderful experience.
He was very excited, and so were we. He came in early May. He spent a week with us. We were all exhausted at the end of the week because although he was 75 years of age, he had a terrific amount of energy and he had a very different schedule to the rest of us. He rested every afternoon while we kept working, and then at the end of our work day, he decided he was ready to go well into the evening hours.
And then suddenly when I sat there with the children, all the wheelchairs moved up until they have surrounded me, and there in front was Carrie, who presented me with this beautiful pewter, which says in my symbol, "Thank you, Mr. Bliss, from the little children students of cinematography." And then I was so happy there, and I played my mandolin and told them jokes and old tricks and juggled before them, and they laughed and laughed and laughed their head off.
The children loved him. We'd leave him alone quite frequently with the children, but I don't think he ever fully appreciated their mental abilities and also the complexity of their mental ability. He, at the end of the week, I think, thought the children could do more than they could. And at the beginning, he'd been amazed that they could do anything.
Good morning. Let's put the fingers right on the word that describes the kind of news you want to tell.
These children suffer from cerebral palsy, a condition caused by brain damage that interferes with muscular activity. The vocal cords are muscles, so they can't speak properly. But in most, intelligence is not impaired. They perceive and understand, but how do you communicate?
Your news is... Terry's news is about typing a letter. Carrie? Carrie has a little piece of news, and what's it about? About her grandmother. John? John wants us to guess what his news is about. And Greg. Greg has a guess, too. Silvano has happy news. Now, where shall we start? Let's have John's guessing news. John says that he could go to the desk and get the box, but it would be more fun if you told us by clues what's in your box.
They started out using 10 symbols. In 3 years, these children had 500 symbols on their boards, as many as can be within arm's reach. The words under the symbols are for parents and others who haven't mastered the symbols, as the children have.
Does anyone have a question to ask John? Terry? Are you telling us that you have one too and yours starts with a C? Terry says he knows all about your I because he has one that starts with a C. Now, what are these two people talking about? Carrie, please don't tell. Make the others guess. Does that help you, Greg? All right, John, open your box because most of us have guessed what's inside. This is John's costume that starts with an I. Now you know. Here's his Indian costume. John, this is very fancy. Where did you get it? Your mother made the costume. How'd you get the petals like that? Can you steer it? Yeah.
A child like Greg will never be a fluent talker, but the symbols are leading the children out of their isolation. They can communicate, say what's on their minds, tell what they feel.
That's pretty easy, too. From what animal do we get milk? Mm-hmm. Good, John. Good. Why is it better to build a house of brick? Which animal might do that? So the wolf might do what? Could he do that with brick? No. So what does that tell us? Why is it better to build a house of brick than of wood? Okay. Interesting anecdote that occurred with John last year. After an assessment, John went back to his classroom and asked his teacher whether he could work out his own psychological assessment device. He did, in fact, make up a test using symbols.
Is this the one you made at school? Oh.
The test consisted of a group of symbols, one of which doesn't belong with the others. He took it home to try it out on his parents.
You got a hard one.
Okay.
That's...
Johnny, are you telling Daddy?
Man. Oh, that's man, okay. That's animal?
Yeah.
All right. That one is a policeman?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what's that one? I don't know what that one is.
Over here, he's pointing.
Oh. That's a lady. Oh. And that's garbage. How come you put garbage without the rest of it?
That's the one.
Hmm? Well, that's different.
We find that in the symbols, you know, more people have spent more time with Johnny, people that wouldn't normally pay any attention to him. They're interested.